And we're live. Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us at our second COP26 all about the climate crisis that's currently going on. Thank you to Nick for joining me here, and Jess, hello.
Hi.
There we go. So today we're going to have a conversation about what's going on in our local area with in relation to environmental issues and what we can do ourselves from our personal points of view. How can we help with the climate crisis? I know sometimes it can feel a little overwhelming, and it can leave you feeling a little bit powerless. To think that there's this whole great big thing going off and we're just one person who what can we do. So I'm going to start by just saying here in Derbyshire we've got quite a lot of initiatives going on, but one of the most recent ones which I'm really interested in is the re-release of animals such as beavers back into our wild areas, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, the effects of that haven't yet sort of been looked at and recorded, but everywhere else it's been done, the biodiversity that's sprung up around them has been quite amazing. Nick, is that something, what's going off down in your area?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, actually, because we've actually had beavers down here for a little while. We were one of the first trial areas, and it is absolutely fantastic. We have lots of things that people don't really realise they can get involved with. We've got lots of walks and wildlife things like up on Woodby Common. I mean, I'm in Devon and Exmouth. There's loads of stuff like that. We've got the beach and everything, so there's always like litter picking and all sorts of things that people totally don't realise that actually that's a really massive thing, because these things get dragged out of the estuary out into the sea and they become really dangerous to wildlife. Wildlife obviously is really detrimental to the ecosystem, and it's it's been really difficult over like COVID and stuff, because we have birds of prey ourselves, me and my husband, and we do a lot of conservation work with them to really educate people as to what is actually in your environment right now and how to help that. On top of the COVID virus, we've also had really devastating, this is the second time now that we've had avian flu. One of the things we've been making people really aware of is that avian flu is absolutely lethal. When we have it, people that have got any sort of birds in their garden, chickens, anything like that, you need to have them locked away, because avian flu has the potential to wipe out every bird species, and without them we can't survive. I mean, there is no treatment for avian flu. All we can do is quarantine. And this is one of the things we've made really clear to people, that it is so crucial to quarantine your animals at that time. A lot of people have got 1 or 2 chickens running around the garden, and that can just pass it on so quickly, and they think, oh, but just 1 or 2 chickens, we'll leave them out. And and it's avian flu is devastating. When one bird gets it, any other bird you've got will catch it. They need to be put down. There is no cure for it. They get ill very, very quickly, and it's massive. And that's one of the things we've been doing, is making people aware of little things like that. It seems it's a massive thing, but little things that people do have a massive, fantastic effect.
I think it is the small things that we can do as individuals and small groups that carry a lot of power, don't they? I mean, even the things like I've noticed in my local area, it's quite a deprived area because it's ex-mining community, so there's not a lot of investment in the area. There's a lot of sort of a general feeling of hopelessness among people because there's not many jobs and the area doesn't have much money in general. But I've noticed that there are initiatives going on with 1 or 2 people who are grasping an idea and running with it. So there is a local group now that are doing litter picks, which is absolutely fantastic. I have never seen that happen in my local area. And yet last week they were posting on the local groups on Facebook, group pictures of people that have been joining them, and it's getting bigger week after week after week. So I think those small things are really vitally important, aren't they?
They truly are. I mean, because I live in Exmouth, always been a beach town. Whenever we've gone to the beach when we were kids, and when, you know, my daughter was little, we've always like, right, we're packing up for the day, make sure we've got all our rubbish, and now run around our area and pick up however many pieces of other rubbish. And it's not just that you're doing good for the environment in that way, but it's also making people get out and be getting fresh air, and that's making you healthier for things like coping with COVID and things like that. You know, you're getting out, you're getting a bit of exercise. I'm not, you know, half an hour and you've got a bin bag of rubbish, and you think all that would have gone into the sea, been absolutely devastating. I mean, one of the heartbreaking things I saw probably about 6 months to a year ago was they were videoing the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the deepest trench in that there is, and there was a plastic bag at the bottom, a carrier bag, and I'm like, I nearly cried. I was like, that is how, you know, that is right there where we've never been, and yet we've still managed to contaminate it. So little things like litter picking, people think, oh, well, how's that going to make a difference? It makes a huge difference, a massive difference.
So, and not just on a big scale like that kind of thing either, but it makes a big difference to local wildlife as well, doesn't it? Because they don't get stuck with it, they don't end up with their young trapped in it, etc., etc. I think these are huge things that actually really do contribute, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been working along Exmouth seafront, and you know, we've now got peregrine falcons down at Orcombe Point. You know, birds that you haven't seen for a really long time. It's one of the reasons we did so much conservation work with our rescued owls and stuff. So, like, do you realise that these are actually visiting your back garden at night? And people are like, no, you know, and like, yeah, absolutely, you know, and it's made people really, really. It's just daft little things. I was living before, we literally lived down the road from McDonald's, so we'd go up for McDonald's breakfast with the birds, sit outside, and the conversations you're having, you know, and it just makes people realise that wildlife's right there, and you can tell them a few little things like calls and things like that, and then they're actually starting to hear that, you know, and it's you know, people realise actually this is in our gardens, this is in our area, you know. I didn't know, like, hedgehogs are declined so badly, but people seem to be over the last year or two so aware of hedgehogs now. It's brilliant, you know, that everyone can try and help, or people just did not realize they had these things in their gardens, you know. No, I think right there.
I think a lot of people have become very sanitized to nature, haven't they? Because they're in their homes, in their gardens, and they have them all to themselves, and they don't realize what lives in there at night. I mean, my house backs onto a bit of woodlands with a little stream, and then there's some allotments at the back of it, so it is quite natural, and there's a bit of it that's quite wild, and we have quite a lot of things like foxes and hedgehogs and all that sort of stuff, and they come into our garden, which is great to see. We've got one old fox particularly that we see running across our garden and over the road. He uses our garden like a thoroughfare, like he trots over to the park over the road, and he's been here a long time. I can't even remember the first time I saw him, but he's been around a long time, and now I can hear his kits, you know, and it's wonderful. And these things are in your garden. I watched a sparrowhawk the other day feasting on a pigeon on my compost heap. So you know, these things really are around us, in us. They're part of our world, and I think it's, for a long time we've become very used to living apart from these things. And I think as pagans particularly, we have a really rare opportunity here to be able to teach the next generation the things that we perhaps know that other people have become disconnected from.
That's the biggest thing that I fear, actually, is the next generation. They're so, I mean, I've always worked with kids, but they're just so intelligent on computers and things like that. And you're not getting out into nature, you know, and if you can't if on the next generation and the generation after that cannot relate to nature, there will be no survival of us, because without nature, I mean, things like bees, I mean, this comes up all the time, but things like bees, if we lose bees, which we are losing very rapidly, we cannot survive.
Absolutely.
It's you know, it's not, oh, we'll find a way around it. There is no way around it, you know. And things like, if we don't, a scary thing, you know, that really took me back the other day was I was watching this on the news, and if we don't make, as the human beings, a major adjustment now, by 2030 there'll be no turning back. You know, we will be devastated. Well, so much, this drastic weather and all these things will be irreversible. The weather, the extreme weather we've seen this year will be far worse, and we will be losing life all the time, and we won't be able to do anything about it. We need to make these massive changes right now, and that's not just fear mongering. This is the absolute truth. This isn't for our, it's not our children's generation or their children's generation. This is in our lifetime. This is in a few years, you know, and that's just like, why have we been so blinkered up until now? And one of the things I noticed when we first locked down for COVID was how nature thrived. There was no one on the road. There was nothing in the air, and nature thrived, and our cycle of seasons was fantastic. It was. And nature absolutely thrived that year. And as soon as traffic started to go back on the roads, and I know it needs to happen, but not to the extreme that it is.
We've got to find a way to live with it, haven't we? We can't.
Absolutely.
We can't live to the exception of nature. We've got to be a part of it, and we've got to find a way to maneuver and move our daily lives with it rather than apart from it. I think is the key, isn't it? Hi, Anne. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. We were just talking about some great local initiatives that we've both got going off in our areas. Have you got anything around you?
Not really, no. Which is a great shame.
Oh.
Recycling doesn't really happen. Well, it does happen, but I'm still in an area that doesn't recycle glass. Can you believe that?
Oh my word.
No recycling of glass, no recycling of food waste. And my MP's Matt Hancock, so I'm saying no more than that. But I have written to him on numerous occasions, and there are a few piecemeal, that's a good word for it, piecemeal things going around, but nothing.
We've been talking about things that are happening, like in my local area, they're re-releasing beavers.
Are they?
Yeah. So of course, so the biodiversity that is caused because of reintroducing wildlife that should be there in the first place is an immense boon to the effort, isn't it?
Yeah. However, I can almost guarantee you, once they get going, the local landowners will complain about them, because they say, because they do chew lots of trees.
We've had beavers in the River Otter now for quite a few years, and actually we thought exactly the same, but the local farmers are actually seeing how much was lost without having beavers, and they're realizing that actually they are really effective, you know, that they're not a nuisance that they thought they were going to be, and we've had them for quite some time now, quite a few years.
So we're just talking about as well what we can all be doing, because as I said at the top of the call, it can be quite disempowering and quite frightening that we're all individuals, and, you know, what can we do ourselves to help with the effort?
There are lots and lots we can do ourselves. The most extreme one, of course, is go vegan.
Yep.
You don't have to do that, but you really do need to think about your meat consumption. Because animals have got a lot of methane and stuff. Then you've got, why do you get in the car every time you go out?
Yep.
So many people get in the car every time they go out. Think about, can I walk there? Can I cycle there? Can I get on the bus? Can I get on the train? Can I get, if I must use the car, can I share my journey with somebody else? Because so many people from places like where I live in a place that's 17 miles from Cambridge. An awful lot of people who live here work in Cambridge, at the hospital and all around. And there is a very good bus service, I have to say that. It's fairly quick, but a lot of people drive. Why, if you're working 9 to 5, why can't you take your neighbour with you if you must drive?
Yeah.
Clothes. What about clothes? Don't buy new stuff. Think about buying old stuff. Go to your charity shop. If you don't want to go to a charity shop, how about having a mate? I have a friend, and I'd lost quite a bit of weight, and she'd put quite a bit of weight on. So I put all my big stuff in bags, and she put all her small stuff in bags, and we swapped. And that was really good. Have a clothes swapping party. That's a good one to have.
Yeah.
And, you know, as long as you invite a few people that are roughly the same size, otherwise it won't work. Turn lights off, turn heating down, put a jumper on. Never ceases to amaze me. You'll go around to somebody's house and they've got shorts and a little t-shirt on in January. What is that all about? They don't need the heating up that high.
No, I agree.
And if you are chilly while you're sitting around watching the box or whatever you're doing, put a blanket over you. I like snuggling in a little blanket.
Oh, I've got blankets in every room. I love blankets.
Yeah. All sorts of it's the stupid little things that makes the difference in the big picture. Think of if you've got a mosquito going down your clothing, how much damage that mosquito can do compared to, I don't know, an elephant. But that little mosquito, tiny little thing, can make a hell of a difference to your comfort.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what we need to sort of think about, really.
What about other things that people can be doing as well? I mean, you mentioned your MP there.
I did mention my MP.
Is that something that's worthwhile people doing? You know, talking to their MPs.
Well, it doesn't do any harm. It doesn't. It really doesn't do any harm. A lot of MPs you can email.
Yes.
From the parliamentary website, and it's all you do is you put in your postcode. It tells you who your MP is, and then you write to them, and then you may or may not get a reply. But don't. If you are going to write to your MP, don't write to somebody else's MP because you think they're more sympathetic than yours, because it's against parliamentary policy to move between MPs. I did write to Caroline Lucas once of the Green Party, and I got quite a short, sharp rebuff because she's in Brighton, isn't she?
Yeah.
I think if people don't know that, though, it's quite unfair
really
because it puts people off, doesn't it? You know, so you know, it rather than just being, oh, actually, this is what you need to do. You know, so you know, it's brilliant that you're giving us all this information, and like the recycling, it's my husband's parents. They were very much like yourselves with the recycling not being anywhere near as good as ours, and they were all complaining to their MP, and their recycling is way better than ours now. So you know, things like that can really encourage. Yeah.
The trouble with recycling, and because each council is responsible for its own recycling, and they subcontract it out. It's not actually the council's thing. There is no law as such in Parliament that says you must recycle to a standard. So there's a possibility. I don't think there is still, but there's a possibility. There's councils around that don't do any recycling at all.
I would hope not.
One hopes not, and I don't think that is the case, but it might be.
But like you said, you can't even get glass recycled, and that should be one of the easiest things recycled.
Yeah, and I personally, like, you're talking about recycling and stuff. If I have a drink, I have a can rather than a bottle.
Yes.
Because a can is so much easier for them to recycle than a plastic bottle is.
Yes.
And loads of people don't even think about that, do they?
No.
It's like when you go in the supermarkets, don't buy stuff in plastic packaging. If you want to be real fun, take all your stuff out of said plastic packaging and post it back to them.
I tend to go to my local butchers because I know that the meat has come from local farmers, so it's supporting local business. That the food miles on it is at a minimum, and I also know that the quality's up there because they're considerate and they're compassionate and they look after their animals, and also that the butchers is also the abattoir, so they kill in the most humane way possible. So if we buy meat, then I tend to go there, and I do the same with vegetables as well. I try and go to the farmers market, or at the very least the local market, to try and buy fruit and veg from local farmers, because then I'm supporting local business and the food miles are down, and I try and make it sustainable like that, because I've got a big family, so I buy quite a lot of food, but I try and make it as we're eating good food, one, that's good for us anyway, and two, it comes with very little packaging.
I'll tell you what I was horrified with is recently I've had to go on to a weird diet doctors put me on, and one of the things is I have to be gluten-free, and the gluten-free packaging is ridiculous. The amount of packaging that I contacted a couple of companies and like, this is ridiculous. The amount of packaging you're using for like a couple of items is disgraceful. It's I was really horrified. It's like, it was quite shocking, because it was like in plastic, in more plastic, and there's just absolutely no need for it, but it's the only stuff we can actually get. But like yourself,
we've got to say, but you need to think about what you're eating, because a lot of foods they try and make a gluten-free version of something that is normally glutinous, if you know what I mean. And it's expensive, it's highly processed usually, and not necessarily good for you. So perhaps you could think about having something else that is naturally gluten-free, like oat biscuits and all that sort of stuff.
It's just this really weird diet. But one of the things I try to base my diet on now, because it's a health thing for me, is basing it on foods that are naturally produced. So like if it's meat, it's not processed meat, it's not processed foods, it's not breads or pastas, it's what I class as earth-based foods, natural foods, if you get what I mean. That's what I'm aiming for.
I've got to say, I'm a vegetarian, so I don't eat meat, so I don't have to have this discussion about it.
I think there's a great deal of stress out there for some people as well, because they might be in a position where they need something that that people are talking about. For example, someone like my friend who actually does have to eat meat, doesn't want to, has been vegetarian for a long time, but has now been told if she doesn't eat meat, then she's going to be seriously ill, and she's trying to do it in the best way possible.
Oh, really?
Yes,
That's
yeah, absolutely. She does feel better. She does feel better with not, she doesn't have to eat meat every day, but she needs to eat it.
No, she doesn't need to eat it. No. She does not need to eat it. There are lots.
You have to have stuff for medical reasons.
Sometimes you do, yeah. And she has found that that's the case, that if she doesn't eat it, then she is actually really poorly. And she's trying to figure out how to deal with that. And how to do these things imperfectly. And I think there's a very worthwhile message in, we'd rather lots of people do these things imperfectly than everyone try and stress themselves out and feel
Absolutely.
about things that
Absolutely. But if your friend has been a vegetarian for a long time and now she has been advised to eat meat, she needs to talk to a proper dietitian.
She has
at the hospital.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
That's tough.
I believe it. I'm with a dietitian at the moment, and that's exactly why I've had to do certain things with my diet. Yeah.
So yeah, I think
I had a conversation like that when I first became diabetic. 12 years ago, something like that, and I never took the said advice, because I wouldn't want anything. But I never did. But I did look at what I was eating, and there are things like tofu. Does your friend eat tofu?
She eats a lot of. She's vegetarian, so she does eat things like cheese and things like that. But yes, she does eat tofu. She does eat things like that. But yeah, she does feel better for eating, once or twice a week. Just a little bit of meat in a diet, and again, she's trying to work around that. So she's looking at using the local butchers so that the food miles are down and the impact is lessened, and all that kind of thing. But she had this immense amount of guilt at first that she needed to do this. And I think it's worthwhile saying that there are, like my son, we had a big debate about straws a couple of years ago when there was a big hoo-ha about straws. He needs a straw. There is no other way for him to drink a drink, so he needs a straw. So often if we're out and he needs a drink, our only choice at the time was to use a drinking straw. And he had this sort of immense amount of guilt that he was causing this plastic waste, through needing to have a straw. I mean, we've solved that problem now, because fortunately lots of manufacturers have come up and they've made glass and metal straws and all sorts of wonderful things. And we've got a little case with his own glass straw in it that he can take out with him and things like that. But I think there is something to be said for this guilt that a lot of people are feeling. And it can lead them to inaction, and it can lead them to feeling, kind of a bit hopeless. And I wouldn't want to put that on anybody's shoulders. So I think it's better that lots of us do little things, the little things that we can do, And I don't think it's worth beating.
I was going to say, generally, I think a lot of people are so overwhelmed with the issues that they just don't know where to start.
Absolutely.
Or it's like there's quite a good program on the box at the moment called Spend Well, Live Less, or something like that. It's on BBC, and it's all about how you can reduce your carbon impact. And there's things like, and they sort of have their average family, and they take away all their plastic and they give them an electric car, and they change their energy, and they do recycle stuff and all sorts of stuff, and they work out in the end, if they do go green, how much it will save them rather than how much it will cost them.
Yeah.
Because that's the big thing, isn't it? Everybody's like, I can't go green. That's too expensive.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the myths surrounding it, isn't it? That it's going to cost an awful lot for people to do, and I think there are some things that can cost a lot of money, you know, like putting solar panels on your house, or those kinds of things. They can initially cost a lot of money, which a lot of, buying an electric car, which a lot of families, you know, when you first look at that, it can be quite overfacing, and it can look really
I was got to say, it's about, you're looking at about another 30-40% on top of what you pay for a petrol equivalent. And I do have a few issues, as I'm sure you're aware, with electric cars.
Well, there are, because there's the environmental effects of that as well, and you've really got to weigh it up. Yeah,
we can't generate enough electric to power them all. So we're talking about having another nuclear power station, or actually we're talking about having 2 new nuclear power stations, but we still don't know what to do with the waste. We're opening a new coal mine in Cumbria, or they want to open a new deep coal mine, just the one. But I suspect if they open a new one there, they'll open a new one somewhere else. They're looking for oil and gas offshore, and a lot of gas, offshore gas and oil, goes into making electricity. And the lithium to make the batteries is running out.
The thing is, there's lots of, you know, that's how we look at it. Then we're looking at a much bigger thing. It's like me and my husband. It's like, we've got 2 vehicles and we can't afford an electric car. We don't actually have a driver or anything where we could have an electric car and charge it. You know, sometimes it's right down the street. But little things like after that first lockdown with COVID, and we saw the massive effect. I mean, my husband, it was a crucial delivery driver for things, so he was still working, and you know, and the roads were bare and things were so amazing. That made us straight away make sure that we are only using 1 vehicle at a time. So if my husband's at work, and you know, I'll wait until he gets home from work, I won't go running around in the car while he's driving around in van or whatever, you know. So just little things like that. It's we've you know, it's like, well, we can't afford to get an electric car at the moment, but that is something we can do. Really stupid things, like we had an electric pump for the pond in the garden and stuff like that, and we had to move house. It's like, oh, let's just do a solar pump, you know, and lots of little things like that. Make sure you are recycling. Lots of little things like that, like people are going to be putting up Christmas lights. Make sure there's solar Christmas lights or things like that. You know, it's little things that people can actually do. Yeah, because it's very much like it's the big issues that make us feel like, well, we can't, that's down to government, we can't do anything about that, you know, and that's what overwhelms us and makes us think we can't do these things. It just like my diet, when a doctor said you need to go on this diet, I'm like, I can't afford to go on that diet because fruit and veg is more expensive than other things, you know. I think it's disgusting that I go to the supermarket and an apple is the price of a bag of 5 donuts, you know, that you can, that's one for all the family, whereas that's 1 apple, and it's disgusting, you know. So
I think that's
do you want to hear something really sad? I can't remember the last time I bought 5 donuts, and I wouldn't know how much they are.
I haven't had a donut for a very long time.
I think that's something else that people don't realise that they have either, is buying power.
Yeah,
because you know they don't
and that buying part really makes a difference.
It does, doesn't it? How we choose to shop and what we choose to buy is very important.
A little while ago I was in Sainsbury's of all places, and I was trotting along the fruit and veg aisle looking at the stuff, and if I can, I quite like to buy organic. And I picked up some green beans, even though they were in season here. And I picked up these French green beans, organic ones, and they were from Kenya, and they were flown in from Kenya. And you just think, what is going on? And a lot of people say, oh, I'll buy organic, it's better for me. But
if it's flown halfway around,
halfway across the world, It's not better for you.
And
Honestly, it is not.
It's not necessarily as healthily organic as people think either.
Absolutely.
One of the things that a friend of mine told me and I didn't know about, and it's really worth getting little things like this out and about people, Lidl's do, I mean, they do it most days here in Exmouth, is you can go into Lidl's and buy a cardboard box, a nice size cardboard box for £1.50 full of vegetables, fruit, herbs, and all stuff basically they're going to throw away, and you can buy it for £1.50. And you know, it's not stuff that's bruised and going moldy and stuff. It's just because it's becoming their end date, they can't sell it, and rather than throw away £1.50, you know, so that's a nice bit of fresh fruit and veg for a family there. You know,
if you can get hold of one.
We got loads. Yeah, we're really lucky.
Have you got loads? Really?
Yeah, we're really lucky.
My Lidl. If you go there after 9:30, you won't get one.
Oh no, we're really lucky. Yeah, and I think it's because Tesco's in Exmouth, this is one thing I really get cross about with big supermarkets. If we go to Tesco's Exeter, it is a lot cheaper than Tesco's Exmouth. The petrol is like 10p a litre cheaper in Exeter than Exmouth, which is 8 miles away. Okay, so like everyone in Exmouth is boycotting Tesco's because we've got Lidl's and we've got farm shops and we've got the butchers and we've even like home bargains and that now are doing food, you know, and it's like we're not going to Tesco's unless we really have to, you know, and it's things like that.
That's where your buying power exists, isn't it? Because you can choose to go to these places so long as they exist in your local neighbourhood. You can choose to go to these places, and I think we've forgotten. Largely, you know, society has kind of forgotten the little businesses for the sake of the big ones, just because they might save a penny or two. And I think that's something that I've noticed particularly, is that actually the meat and the fruit and veg from the places that I use, my butchers, my local greengrocers, etc., are actually cheaper if you compare. But if you take the time to compare prices, you know, they're actually cheaper than the supermarket is. It's just the illusion of everything being cheaper at the supermarket because they have, you know, little offers on and stuff like that. But actually, you know, 9 times out of 10, you don't need those things that are on offer.
They're actually healthier, nicer, and don't go off as fast. If we buy strawberries from Tesco's, they're really expensive, and you have to eat them before you get home. But it's things we're really lucky.
Make a little note there. Please try and eat seasonally as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it makes you enjoy your food more and recognise seasons. But it's things like if you are lucky enough to drive past somewhere that are selling eggs because they got some chickens in their gardens or a little farm shop. I mean, we're really lucky we got them. You know, not only are they the same price as Tesco's free range eggs, they are much nicer. They've got such a better colour to them because they're just so much healthier for you. It seems really daft, but they really are.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, folks, we need to be drawing this call to a close. That's okay. I hope our viewers have enjoyed our little chat this evening. You can watch back on our YouTube channel, and we've put the link on our Facebook page as well. Thank you all for joining us. We will be back next week with our final COP26 call, in which we're going to set our intentions. What would we like the leaders that are coming out of COP26 to do once this conference is over? Any last thoughts, Anne?
We will get there. Just a little thing from time to time makes a difference.
It does.
No matter how small.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh no. It's frozen up. I can't stop streaming again.
That happened last time I was on.
It's you. It's your fault.
Yeah. I'm going to have to just turn
it off.
If we all leave, will that work?